I'd always known when I started a series that involves Josephine Tey, you don't turn it down when your character in real life has a film made by Alfred Hitchcock. So I'd seen Young and Innocent and I knew it was coming up on the cards, and I'd sort of been putting it off for a bit because taking on Hitchcock as a character and Alma Reville, his wife, is a huge thing, and so much has been written about him, and it seemed very, very daunting at the same time as irresistible. So the beauty of the fact that it's Young and Innocent and one of his British films, it's a really interesting period for him. So I concentrated the research on his English years, because when he moves to America, he kind of becomes a legend. He becomes that person we all know something about, and he was so brilliant at becoming a caricature of himself. But there was a slightly more human element to him, I think, in the early years. He was a man who was still on the cusp. It must have been huge deciding to go to America, and that decision was already in his head at the time of the book. So he had worries about his wife and his family and what was best for them, doubts about his own work, problems with the producers. So they, to me, seemed much more manageable in fiction, and maybe more interesting than to go on to his later years and talk about those kind of obsessions that we all know him for. Hitchcock, if I'm honest, never really interested me greatly. I mean, I wouldn't have chosen to put Hitchcock in a book if it hadn't been for the Josephine Tey link. But his wife did. Alma Reville interested me. Their partnership interested me. The fact that she was actually senior in film. She'd been working in film for about 4 years before she saw him walk across the yard with the title cards under his arm, thinking he was a bit snooty. And her contribution to the films, it's typical in Young and Innocent, she's credited with continuity, and she was a very professional editor and continuity girl and assistant director. But she did so much more than that. She was hugely involved in the choice of material in the first place, in the shaping of the scenario, in the trashing of Tey's book and the coming up with something else. And so she really was my way into Hitchcock. And I also felt that she would be somebody who Josephine would get on very well. You know, that period when the film, I didn't want to put Tey on a film set and do the obvious thing and set the book within the filming of Young and Innocent. But I thought what was interesting from Josephine's point of view and from mine is how writers feel when somebody takes their original work and transfers it into another medium. And Alma Reville is crucial in that. So she, for me, was the way into all the characters. And then after that, you just have that kind of delicious choice of starlets and matinee idols who are perhaps past their best, and ambitious crew and all that sort of thing. And to take all those and put them in the melting pot with Josephine Tey and Archie Penrose being the kind of wry observers on the side, mixed up with it, but still detached enough to be able to look at them in a way that says, what on earth is that film stuff all about, was just nice. She shouldn't have been surprised at what happened to the book. I mean, we should just say that in filming it, he wipes most of the characters out. He puts a romance at the heart of the book at the heart of the film that doesn't exist in the book. And he does that cardinal sin. He even changes the identity of the killer, which for a detective novel is a bit, it's just not cricket really. But he, after the deal was signed, there's a record of him declaring publicly that her book was very, very bad. And the most favourable thing I've ever read from her about the film was to express her admiration for Derek Damani's cheekbones. She didn't really go much further than that. And it's interesting because it was a long time before she allowed her work to be filmed again. There are letters where she expresses great pleasure in turning down Hollywood, and it's only in the early 50s, just before her death, that she allows Britain to get its hands, Lawrence Huntington to direct The Franchise Affair, which was a completely different film, much more faithful to the book. It's strange though, because the really weird thing is that the more I watch Young and Innocent, the more I see absolutely the essence of Tey's work in it. And even though the storyline is so completely different, that world and the Englishness of it and the interest in the innocent man accused and all that kind of thing. And I think that is Hitchcock's genius for me. I mean, there are technical things in that film that are amazing for the time, but his integrity to the film as a medium of storytelling, whatever cost to the book or the play. And he's not remotely worried about upsetting people like me who are a bit touchy about the characters, and all credit to him for that.